Good, happy Wednesday evening. I'm Riley King, and welcome to U.S. News Now with Riley King. I'm Riley King, and let's begin this evening edition of U.S. News Now. First up, we begin with New York City. Students return to class as coronavirus cases spike. Let's take a listen to that video from CBS Evening News.
Some students in the nation's largest school district, New York City, returned to class today. But could an alarming spike in new cases mean schools will have to close again? Here's CBS's Nikki Batiste.
5-year-old Tiago left his home this morning for the most anticipated day since March, his first day back in the classroom, one of nearly 500,000 students returning to New York City schools this week. He's so excited! But it happened the same day as this alarming announcement. New York City's coronavirus cases rose to a daily positivity rate of just above 3%, the highest since June.
You don't enforce the mask ordinance, you will have a higher infection rate.
And New York's mayor warned New Yorkers starting today if they didn't wear masks in public, they would face a fine. All this as a new study shows a dramatic rise in the rate of children infected by COVID-19, who made up just over 2% of all cases in April to more than 10% today. Are you alarmed by your study's findings?
I'm always alarmed to see children getting a disease at higher rates.
Dr. Sarah Goza, president of the AAP, says she supports in-person learning where communities have a low number of coronavirus cases.
Children learn more at school than just reading, writing, and arithmetic. They get social skills. We know we are harming our children by not getting our community spread down so that it is safe to go back to those in-person schools.
New York City has twice delayed the start of school. Many teachers have protested. And some principals, like Moses Ojeda, say that while they want schools to reopen, they're worried and anxious. Do you think that you have enough teachers and staff?
I'm currently short 14 teachers to reopen on Thursday.
Wow.
God forbid a teacher now has to take a medical accommodation, then I'm short-handed and now I have to scramble to try to find someone.
Mayor Bill de Blasio says if the one-week average positivity rate rises above 3% here in New York City, he will automatically shut down schools. The city's Department of Education says if one school has 2 COVID-19 cases in different settings, that school will be closed until the source is identified. Nora?
Nikki Batiste, thank you.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Take a look at this. Nancy Pelosi lost a lot of sleep over Trump not denouncing extremist groups. Let's take a listen to that video from MSNBC Morning Joe.
I don't think that there should be any debates. I do not think that the President of the United States has comported himself in a way that anybody should, and has any association with truth, evidence, data, and facts. I wouldn't legitimize a conversation with him.
Well, she was actually Mika proven.
Prescient words.
100% right.
Yeah, I mean, especially on the basis of the fact that the president doesn't work with facts. He lies out of the box, and if you can't have a buzzer stop him, and you can't force him to stay within the realm of facts, how can you have a debate? How can you have a debate that would further our democracy, which is part of the process of our democracy? We did not have that last night. Joining us now, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California. Madam Speaker, your thoughts on what happened last night, and what would you call it?
Well, it was really a sad night for our country in that the President of the United States would not disassociate himself from white supremacists, some terrorist our country. I lost a lot of sleep last night over that one fact. But I did know that he has never respected the dignity of his office, and he demonstrated that last night. I think one thing he did present was the authenticity of who he is, with disregard for bringing our country together, with any knowledge of the challenge we face in the coronavirus crisis, with catering to his base by saying what he said about the Proud Boys and white supremacists. Actually, he's moved. In Charlottesville, we were disgusted when he said there are good people on both sides. This time, he didn't even grant that to the other side. And so this was a very sad occasion. I think we have to be prayerful. Yesterday, I began the day with a group of interfaith people led by Sister Simone Campbell, of course, and others, though, who were having a day of prayer, of unity for our country, that we could come together to meet the needs of the American people. Clearly, with this president, our prayers, either we're not praying hard enough or they're just not working. But some kind of intervention is necessary. And if his family, for his personal health, or his Republican associates, for the good of their party and our country, don't want to intervene, then the election has to be the major intervention on this president's behavior.
Should there be, Madam Speaker, should there be more debates, given that the president broke all the rules that he agreed to during this debate last night?
Well, as you know, I never thought that he would, that anybody should reduce themselves to being on the stage with him, because we know what his behavior was going to be like. I'm just sorry that they didn't turn off the microphone when it was Joe Biden's turn to speak, and turn it on when it was the president's turn to speak, and we would have not had this disruption. You would have thought that would have been a simple thing to do. But he's been enabled his whole life, and now the American people are paying a price for the fact that no one has ever said to him no. And this is so tragic, because I pray for him every day. I pray for the personal security of him and his family. I pray that God will open his heart to the goodness of the American people, so that we can come together, e pluribus unum, from anyone that our founders gave us guidance to do. But when you see the behavior, just the lack of respect for the office that he holds, the indignity of what you saw really was authenticity. You saw his authenticity, and you saw Joe Biden's authenticity. And I just think the contrast was so great. I just wish it could have been more focused on the fact that he is trying to deprive people of their pre-existing conditions, that he was a total and is a total failure when it comes to addressing the coronavirus crisis, that while he can talk about the economy all he wants, but tens of millions of people have filed for unemployment insurance, that we want our children to go to school, yes, but safely, and our economy to open up, but safely. We, the American people, deserve that discussion to happen. And what is the vision each person has for the future? Elections are about the future. What about the future? What is your vision? What are your priorities? How do you intend to get it done? And how are you connecting heart to heart with the American people, addressing their kitchen table concerns? Instead, we saw a political nervous breakdown, a meltdown, and appeal to his part of his base. I don't think that his whole base are that way, but I do think all the people are that way voted for him.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And now let's talk about last night's debate. So last night's debate was a huge, big disaster and big mess. It was just one big mess, the debate last night. Fallout and the spin from the first fiery debate. Let's take a listen to that video from ABC News.
Turn down our chief White House correspondent, John Carl. Good morning, John. So what are you hearing from the Trump and Biden teams about last night?
Robin, the Trump campaign is trying to say that the president put in a strong performance. The RNC went so far as to say, quote, President Trump made a confident, commanding, and compelling case for his re-election. But Robin, nobody really believes that. I heard from Republicans after the debate, some during the debate, frankly exasperated by the president's performance, the bullying, the rudeness, the incessant interrupting of the moderator, the utter inability to make a case for what he would do in the next 4 years if he was reelected as president. Democrats weren't particularly thrilled with Joe Biden's performance, but they believe the contrast was crystal clear, that there was only one person on that stage who appeared plausibly presidential, and it was not the person who flew on Air Force One last night. They also, by the way, point out, the Biden campaign, that they had their single best hour of fundraising last night between the hours of 10 p.m. and 11 p.m.
John, I want to ask you about the moment from the debate that we also saw in Mary's report, when the President of the United States of America is asked if he's willing to condemn white supremacists, John.
Robin, that was the low point of the debate. I believe that may have been the low point of the entire campaign. The president was asked to condemn white supremacists generally, and then he was asked to specifically condemn a group called the Proud Boys. Now, the Proud Boys are a racist group known to provoke violence on the streets. They call themselves white chauvinists. This is an easy thing to do. He not only did not condemn them, he didn't even criticize them. And unfortunately, Robin, it's really part of a problem, part of a pattern that we've seen with Donald Trump. We've seen for years. We've seen for over a decade. He has never apologized for his role as the central figure in the birther movement, a frankly racist movement. And when David Duke endorsed his campaign back in 2016, he took days to condemn it and only did it after asked a question by a reporter. And he seemed annoyed by the question. He said, he endorsed me? Okay, I disavow. Okay, I disavow. Hardly heartfelt. And then, of course, what we saw play out after Charlottesville, when the world saw white supremacists marching with tiki torches saying Jews will not support us, and he said there were very fine people on both sides.
And that's the moment when Joe Biden said he decided he was going to run for president. Well, hey there, GMA fans.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Thank you for joining us for this evening edition of U.S. News Now with Riley King. I'm Riley King. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you back here tomorrow for another edition of U.S. News Now with Riley King. Good night and goodbye, everyone. Thank you for watching.